It was on our YouTube post from Dr. Hoovian. They say, "Hey there, what races are best for new D&D players, and what's something that you shouldn't do?" I would say that, I mean, if you're playing like a min-maxi campaign, then obviously maybe this does matter to some extent. But for my play style and how I've always looked at it, like I just go for like the cool RP or what I think is going to make my character cool for what I've envisioned them to be. I've never been the type to look at like, oh, these three races suck because like their feats and their traits aren't good. For me, there is no like best race and there is no race that you shouldn't play. It's just, what do you want to play? Like what fits your character that you have imagined in their backstory. And
I like to connect with my DM to kind of get an idea of like the world they're wanting to create. I think a great D&D campaign is built around a lot of communication on the front end between the DM and the players on collaboratively what kind of world are we wanting to build together. And if your DM's envisioning like a pretty like classic fantasy kind of world, which typically are humans, elves, dwarves, halflings, gnomes, you know, what have you, and then you want to play a goblin class, there might be some tension there. Tension is maybe not the right word, but you would just want to have that conversation on the front end of like, hey, I'm thinking about this class, so that the DM can design the world appropriately. Or the DM might even say like, well, that wouldn't be a good fit here. Also, I think that sometimes campaigns die because the players aren't aligned with the DM. Like the player really wants to play the goblin. They've always, maybe they watched campaign 2 and they've always really wanted to play this goblin, and the DM just doesn't want it. Like you're misaligned from the get-go. So like you're going to be frustrated. If you're a DM, and sometimes this conversation comes up on, should I ban any races? If you're a newer DM, you might not allow, is it Aarakocra? Classes that can fly, for example. Like things that would create like a larger design space that you have to control and worry about. Only if you're a new DM, because that might cause you to panic when like your player's like, you know, the level 1, they're like, all right, yeah, I'm going to just, you know, take off and like circle the area, you know, and you're like, what do I do? You're flying. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
So, you know, that kind of stuff can be kind of helpful, but
it really just boils down to your table. So like, yeah, I would say there's nothing you shouldn't do unless like that goes against unless you're like in stark contrast to your DM or the other players at the table, because everybody wants to have a good time and be on the same page with things. Like you were mentioning with like one person picking like an evil race and like tormenting the party the whole time. Like that's probably not going to be a good idea unless you guys have all like agreed upon that.
I've always been a fan of the answer yes, either yes and or yes but, in the sense of, you know, you can really find like your biggest inspiration from your players. So when a player comes to you with an idea that's like at first maybe nonsensical, answering with yes, but let's think about how that might work with the party. So like my player wanted to be this like roguish character kind of against the party, and I said, yes, I love that archetype, but let's think about like the dynamics of engaging with everyone and like how that would be a little bit challenging. And then the other side of that is yes, and like maybe they're not considering something like yes, and here's this other city I was envisioning. What if your character was from there? Like a lot of this can be kind of collaborative, and I think a lot of DMs get kind of burnt out because they treat it's like it all has to come from me instead of realizing that your players might have some of the most interesting ideas.